What makes a website stand out? Since I created the Standout Squarespace program in October 2020, I've seen the word thrown around so loosely. So in this video, I'd like to define exactly the hallmarks of a standout Squarespace website and what it takes to create one. After building hundreds of websites myself and having mentored hundreds of designers do the same, I'd like to start by defining what makes a website stand out. For me, there are two essential hallmarks. First, a standout website is visually distinct. Second, it is expertly crafted. Being visually distinct refers to the outcome. This is quite obvious and is what's typically associated to a standout website. But what's often overlooked is the second one, which is being expertly crafted, which refers to the process, which is an equally crucial element to creating smart and standout websites. So now let's look into the details of these hallmarks that makes a website stand out. First, it's important for a website to be visually distinct because a brand website is not a mere display of information. Today, a website is a brand's creative platform for connection. And with an overwhelming number of websites that users come across every single day, how will our website resonate enough for it to shine through and not simply fall into the sea of forgotten browser tabs? Truly, the distinction is in the details. While Squarespace and other website builders make it extremely easy to publish websites, when we rely heavily on default styles, the online experience starts looking and feeling like everyone else's. For example, Squarespace makes it incredibly easy for us to add elements like headers, text decors, newsletter blocks, and more. And while there are native options to tweak their styles, if we simply rely on these built-in designs, users start noticing that they seem to look a little bit too Squarespacey. I'm sure you've probably heard this comment too. This doesn't mean that Squarespace is not a good platform to start with. It's actually an amazing baseline. I also teach and use Shopify, and I've tried all sorts of website builders. But the simplicity of Squarespace really shines through. While other website builders provide more design flexibility, their interface is almost similar to our design tools like Adobe Illustrator. Most of these platforms that have unlimited design freedom have codebase that do not meet accessibility standards. In contrast, Squarespace is constantly updated to meet evolving web design standards in terms of accessibility, responsiveness, and performance. And while Squarespace has guardrails such as grids that make us feel like it's limited, these are actually designed for us to make sure that we meet these standards. And it's not perfect by any means, but it's the best and simplest framework out of the box. I also would like to emphasize that creating familiar interfaces is actually one of the laws of user experience design. It's totally fine and actually recommended for us to use familiar elements such as burger menus and default cursors. As the father of industrial design, Raymond Loewy, said, "To sell something surprising, make it familiar. And to sell something familiar, make it surprising." So our constant challenge in designing websites is to create an experience that's simultaneously surprising and familiar. In Squarespace, I'm able to achieve this by adding codes that leverage built-in features. For instance, Squarespace allows me to easily add navigation links to my header and rearrange them accordingly. But if I wish to make this experience more on-brand and a bit unexpected, I will simply add codes and notice how we can create a menu that is both familiar and surprising. And I have mentored and guided other designers and business owners to accomplish the same in Squarespace. For example, This website, Hotel Weekend, is owned, designed, and built by one of our Standout Squarespace members, Natalia Suarez. Every part of this website is carefully considered to be rooted in its brand aesthetics and purpose. The Squarespace team was so impressed that Natalia built this on Squarespace, hence they invited Natalia to be one of Squarespace's ambassadors. And Natalia attributes a part of her success to the lessons and support inside the Standout Squarespace program. Another example is the Hello World Studio website, which was created by two of our Standout Squarespace members who met inside the program and collaborated to form their own studio. Their website has a fun and cosmic vibe, just a testament to how we can showcase any brand aesthetic on Squarespace with the help of a little bit of code. Another example of a visually distinct website on Squarespace by our student Ellie of Barefooted Earth is the Hati Zampa Art website. If you look at the details like the headers, arrows, even newsletter blocks, and product grids, it's difficult to discern that this was actually built on Squarespace. But it is, so the brand also enjoys the security and simplicity that comes with owning a website on Squarespace. Let's move forward to the second hallmark of a standout website, which is being expertly crafted. Two websites can be identical visually, but when we look at the underlying codes, it's easy to spot which website stands out. It's because an expertly crafted website is first, built with ease, second, is delightful to update. Now let's break this down further by comparing an expertly crafted website from one that isn't, which I call a patchwork. While a patchwork site is reliant on guesswork and piecemeal solutions, an expertly crafted site is intentional and thoughtful at every step. This intent is rooted in deep understanding of what it takes to build a website that meets professional standards. All of us have access to tools like Squarespace, which makes it incredibly easy for us to build websites. However, how we use this tool is what makes the difference. For example, I built this entire project on Squarespace just by leveraging built-in features. I only used code to install the custom font. And in building the site, even if I just added minimal code, I still followed what I call my Standout Squarespace checklist to the T. This checklist constantly reminds me of important steps to make sure that every site that I build comply with standards on accessibility, performance, and responsiveness. I even have dedicated checklists to verify accessibility and site performance. And for every section that I build, I see to it that I check for responsiveness as well as browser compatibility. When expertly crafting a website, we also carefully consider how each code affects website quality. It's convenient to mindlessly paste codes and plugins that we find floating around the internet. I mentioned earlier that we add code to Squarespace to create distinctive websites. However, simply adding code without understanding them may affect the quality of our website. Hence, I ask these critical questions before I incorporate any additional code to my site. First, will this code slow down the site or affect accessibility? Second, will it be easy to update and maintain? Third, will it unintentionally affect other elements? And how does this coded feature respond to browser changes and various device sizes? For example, if you're wanting to add an accent font like this, you might find solutions online that instructs you to add a code block with complicated HTML tags like this. But using these code blocks throughout your site will make these elements uneditable or difficult to update moving forward. There are also solutions that instruct you to simply add an image of a text. However, uploading texts as images like this will not be responsive across devices. And worse, these images will not be properly indexed by search engines and not accessible by users who are dependent on assistive technologies like screen readers. This use case doesn't have to be complicated. By the help of smart coding techniques, we may actually assign our accent font to be the miscellaneous font under our site styles, and we may activate this accent font by adding any normal text block. And to apply the accent font, all we need to do is select a word or group of words and italicize them. This brings me to the next characteristic of an expertly crafted website, which is streamlined and efficient. Especially when you're starting out, coding can be overwhelming, tedious, and clunky. But coding can actually be easy if we learn how to write code the right way. In the same example where we applied an accent font, you might find solutions online that would entail several lines of code, but would you believe that this only entails a single line of code? And what's even better is by using this smart code, we can easily change the font weight, the line height, letter spacing of this accent font without having to add any further codes. This will be such a game changer for you and your clients, especially if you're planning to sell Squarespace templates. We use the same smart approach to create more stylized type system like this one. I can change the font style by changing the format to bold or italic and apply any custom color. This even uses a custom font that is not built within Squarespace, but all it took is an additional line of code. Most quick fix solutions also heavily rely on what we call block IDs and section IDs to avoid unintentionally affecting other elements of the site. But relying on this quick fix will make our code unnecessarily repetitive and tedious, because using these IDs in our code will not allow us to carry over coded features when we duplicate the section, and it will not carry over the coded feature when we save the section in our saved sections catalog. In contrast, when we use smart coding techniques, we can seamlessly reuse a coded feature across the site. For instance, if I turn this built-in list section into a stylish carousel, notice that when I duplicate this section, all the coded features are still intact. And what's amazing is we can also access our coded feature via our saved section catalog. Hence, we may apply it anywhere on the site, and we may even choose to change its color theme. And of course, adding this coded feature shouldn't affect the normal behavior of our list section. For example, I can still easily add a carousel list section as expected and is not affected by adding the coded feature to another carousel list section. Another example is when we wish to isolate certain styles only to certain blocks. For example, if I paste our CSS code, notice how we're able to apply this custom mask only to a particular image without affecting other images. More so after adding our smart codes, if we try to scroll up and down, we'll find that there are now scroll-based animations attached to specific images and are not necessarily applied to all image blocks within the site. These are just quick examples of how we can write code the smart way to make sure that our process is streamlined and efficient. When we are expertly crafting a website, we are also confident of how features will adapt to updates and edits. For example, I transformed this gallery section just by adding some CSS to create this numbered slideshow. And I made sure that this is coded the right way, such that when we change the color theme, our elements will automatically adapt. I also made sure that this will not disrupt the experience of the client when they add another gallery section. So if I change the section to a simple slideshow, notice that it's not affected by our coded elements. Making the site easy to manage and update is paramount. For example, if we wish to have a more stylized blog collection like this one, others might resort to simply using the flexibility of Fluid Engine by adding image blocks and text blocks. However, using that approach will make the site incredibly hard to manage because it will be painful to chronologically arrange the blog posts. Instead, what we can do is to simply stylize the built-in blog collection. So, by default, our blog collection will look simple like this one, but we can simply add CSS to stylize it like this. We may even change the color theme, and what's great is we are able to leverage built-in features like pagination. Here's another example of how we can stylize the built-in blog list. There's actually unlimited ways by which we can stylize it if we leverage code. Lastly, an expertly crafted website is innovative and creative instead of merely being cookie cutter and entirely dependent on ready-made solutions. When we understand the underlying principles as well as the code that we're adding to our site, we're able to creatively combine them to create something new. While I highly encourage designers to build a collection of features that they can easily add to any Squarespace site, I also encourage them to creatively combine these techniques to create something novel. For instance, if you're looking to implement a tabbed layout to present information, we may easily use one of these pre-made sections. But these demos simply gives us a glimpse of what's possible. For example, one of our Standout Squarespace members, Zoe, used this particular technique or workshop as a starting point and combined it with other foundational concepts to create this folder tabs. This fluid tabs technique is leveraging the use of summary blocks, hence the client can also easily edit the content of each tab. Another example is how our student Lauren used this workshop as a starting point to creating a stylish portfolio collection and created this one and combined it with other techniques such as adding these graphics. And with our guidance, we're also able to filter these portfolio based on categories. And again, this is using the built-in portfolio collection. The website development process, especially the coding part, can feel intimidating and time-consuming. If you've tried coding before and felt like so, it could be that you haven't discovered yet the smart way to code Squarespace websites. Here are just some testimonies from our Standout Squarespace members of how having an expert understanding of smart coding techniques allowed them to enjoy the website development process. If you're interested to learn more how to build websites the Standout way, you may check out our flagship program, Standout Squarespace. It's been fully revamped to reflect latest updates on Squarespace and web design technologies. We have 2 levels. The first level is the foundations level, wherein we'll build an entire website from start to finish, guided by the Standout checklist. This is where you'll develop deep understanding of what it takes to create responsive, accessible, and performant Squarespace websites. While learning the powerful features of Squarespace, including digital products, courses, portfolio, and e-commerce, we'll build this Atelier Cologne project together. You'll learn best practices, trade secrets, and top pointers. The second level is where we'll push the boundaries of Squarespace by learning to code the smart way. While learning essential coding techniques and the smart way to select elements and write codes, we will build this fun hologram concept project together. To further apply our smart coding knowledge, our next project within the advanced level is creating a Squarespace template the Standout way. A lot of our Standout members are earning additional income by selling Squarespace templates. And by building this project together, I demonstrated how we use our smart coding techniques to create templates that are easy to deliver and support. Because it is only by building the website in an expertly crafted way that allows us to automate the delivery of Squarespace templates. The key is to make sure that the entire website, including coded features, are duplicated when we duplicate the entire site. The core lessons are complemented and reinforced by workshops and support inside our community. Here's a preview of our growing collection of workshops available inside our community. These are based on most sought after and most requested features from students. For instance, when our students share inspiring websites, we keep tab of them and add them to our pipeline for future workshops. All of our lesson highlights, workshops, and community conversations are also summarized in this code toolkit, which is a searchable database of coded features that we can easily filter. So for example, if I am looking to style a gallery section, I can use this filter and start typing gallery sections. And from here, I will have a good overview of the possibilities if I apply code to this built-in element. We also have a complete business resource to make client communication easy, from discovery call scripts to email scripts up to content guide. All of them can be found inside our knowledge base, and you'll have access to this included in the Standout Squarespace program. To make it easy for you to get started, note that we have an option for you to simply avail of our level 1 only, which is foundations. And at any time when you're ready, you may upgrade to the full version to access coding lessons, workshops, and support. And if you decide to upgrade, we'll take into account whatever payment you've made for the foundations version. If you have any questions about the Standout Squarespace program, you may visit our website standoutsquare.space and click the chat button at the bottom right corner.